Hi, I'm Loretta Ferrucci. I am a homeopath in private practice, and I'm also the owner of a company called Your Ideal Body, where I help people experience the joy and freedom of having optimal health and high vitality. A good friend of mine, is a coach, is busy taking a group of people through a group coaching program, a 12-week group coaching program, and she asked me to address her students in terms of what it is that they need to do in order to care for themselves holistically so that they are capable of sticking to the resolutions that they've made, implementing what they've learned about themselves and the techniques and tools that they've learned during this coaching program in order for them to continue pursuing their vision and their goals. So I thought I would make a video because I couldn't actually be there in person, and I'm sharing it with all of you because I think this was relevant to all of us. So what many of us who do mental or emotional or spiritual work don't seem to take into account is that our physical bodies are just as important as the rest of us. And so many of us do focus on our physical health, but actually a large proportion of us live from the neck up, basically. And so we think that if we've got everything else in place, well, the body's not that important, all right? And so the body is essentially relegated as the poor relation and is the one that we generally tend to neglect if we are very sort of cerebral kind of people. Now, in some instances, the absolute opposite is true. People spend a lot of time and energy on their physical body, on their physical health, and on physical beauty, and then they don't spend as much time developing the other aspects of themselves. So we need to have both, and we cannot ignore our physical bodies, because in the same way in which our thinking, the way in which we perceive reality, our emotions, and our spiritual connection affects our physical body, so the healthier our physical body is, the more robust we're going to be in all of these other areas. And you know, we all want more energy. There isn't a single person who, if you woke them up in the middle of the night and said, could you do with some more energy, would say, oh no thanks, you know, I've got so much of that, actually, you know, really I don't need any more of that. So you can't have energy if you're not actually looking after yourself physically. And the healthier you are, the more energetic you are, and the more sort of, I want to say, balanced you are, the more resilient you are, the better you can actually deal with those things that are going to knock you off your trajectory, because that is life. The universe does not reward us for being good people. Life is a balance between good and bad. It's a balance between support and challenge. And basically, shit is always going to happen at some point. And the more resilient you are, the better you can handle that. And the better your bounce back is obviously going to be. And the physically healthier you are, the more likely you are to be able to actually handle those times of adversity effectively and efficiently. So when we think of physical health, most of us focus on nutrition and exercise, right? We all think we need to be on some sort of diet and we need to be following an exercise program. Now, the problem with that is that there are a myriad of diet programs out there, and they're all promising the earth, and personally I think they're all under-deliver, right? Or they promise for one section of the population, but they don't promise for everybody. And we very often associate good nutrition with sort of pain and suffering and deprivation and not being able to have a good time and not being able to socialize. Well, I believe that that is actually a crock. And I also believe that each one of us, if we're connected enough to our physical bodies, are able to discern what our perfect diet or nutritional profile needs to be. But this requires a bit of practice, just like everything else. So nutrition is essentially not rocket science, and it doesn't matter which fad or program you're following, whether you're a paleo eater, whether you're a ketogenic. Maybe a ketogenic is they eat fewer vegetables, but you know, whether you're doing high carbs, low carbs, high fat, medium protein, whatever your macronutrient ratio is, the bottom line is that all health programs promote the following. We need to eat whole, unprocessed food. We need to eat mostly plants, and essentially we have to not overeat. In longevity studies that they've done with people who become 100 years and older and are in relative and good health, they've studied these people in what they call blue zones of the world. The one thing that they all have in common is that they all naturally calorie restrict. Now, that doesn't mean that they all fast and starve themselves. It just means that they're not overeaters. It seems to be a massive contributor to health and longevity. So mostly whole foods, mostly plants, lots of vegetables basically, and not too much. So that's really the key to good nutrition. Of course, it's important that we hydrate ourselves well, and the quality of the water you drink also matters. So if the water is highly chemicalized and it's got lots of toxins in it, it's still hydrating you, but your body's going to have to detox all the chemicals in there. So if you can have water that is a mineral water or that essentially is purified water, that probably is going to hydrate your cells better. And the rule of thumb for hydration also, it varies. But the sort of standard is that we need to have 300 mils of water for every 10 kilograms of body mass. So the heavier you are, the more you need to drink. And part of the reason for that is generally the heavier you are, the more body fat you have. And body fat doesn't absorb water well. And in fact, body fat hampers the absorption of water. So if we've got a lot of body fat, we need to drink more. So 300 mils of water for every 10 kilograms that you weigh. So if you weigh 70 kilograms, you need to be drinking 2.1 liters of water a day. And so you can make the 300 mils per 10 kilograms of body weight a benchmark. The other thing that people very often neglect, and that is vital to health, and I would go as far to say probably more important than nutrition, is sleep. We have poor sleep hygiene. We spend hours and hours on backlit, blue lit devices like cell phones, tablets, computers, and TVs before we go to sleep. And there's a gland in your head called your pineal. Your pineal produces a chemical called melatonin. And melatonin is what puts you to sleep and keeps you to sleep. And melatonin is a very powerful antioxidant and anti-aging chemical. And we produce melatonin when daylight wanes. So when it gets dark, we produce melatonin, and then when it gets light, then we stop producing melatonin, and that's what enables us to wake up. But light turns the production of melatonin off, and particularly blue light, the wavelength of blue light. And all screened backlit devices, cell phones, tablets, televisions, computers, emit blue light. So the rule of thumb for good sleep hygiene is 45 minutes at least, or an hour before you go to sleep, no backlit devices. Read a book, all right? Have a conversation, have a long bath, meditate, actually even do some very simple basic yoga postures. All of that will benefit you much more than spending time on your phone before you go to sleep, and avoiding things like social media, where there's very often stuff that makes us anxious or that makes us angry or evokes some sort of emotional response. That stuff, that last thing you think about at night before you go to sleep, that's the stuff that's buzzing around in your unconscious. You need to have optimally 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. There are lots of people who claim that they can do it on 4 or 5, and there are figures in history that reportedly slept very little. They didn't live particularly long, and they were not necessarily particularly healthy. They may have been powerful, important people. All the research points to the fact that we need to have 7 to 8 hours of good quality sleep a night. So the thing that I actually think is the most important to being able to pursue our goals in a holistic view is to stay connected to ourselves, to stay connected to our dreams and goals. But here's the thing, most of us are not even connected to the signals from our physical bodies, and then we expect to be connected to our thoughts and our emotions. And our emotions are products of our thoughts that are kept in our body, and the mind, I'm afraid, is a trickster. The mind lies, okay? So we try and stay connected to the vision, and we have vision boards, and we've got little reminders of our mission and our purpose, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I think that connection to yourself and being able to interpret the signals from your body and being able to nurture yourself optimally allows you to nurture other people optimally also. And that's what really gives your life meaning and purpose. And so most of us are so disconnected from our bodies, we don't even know what it feels like to really be hungry, especially those of us who live in the West and in relatively decent socioeconomic conditions. We don't have to hunt for our food. We just have to go to the refrigerator. We just have to go to the supermarket. We can go to the corner cafe. I mean, we can get instant gratification. It doesn't really take any effort. All it takes is us to go to the supermarket and spend some money, and then we can essentially have whatever we want. So one of the biggest issues, remember I mentioned earlier, is that we overeat. And one of the reasons why we overeat is because we generally don't listen to the signals of our body. So I have a program which is called Your Ideal Body, and it's a health, I suppose it's a nutrition, it's a weight loss, it's an all-over reconnect to yourself kind of program. And there's no food. There are no food rules in that program. In fact, I do give sort of a vague idea of mainly what I've just told you. Mostly plants don't eat too much, and whole foods kind of overview, but the program is designed to help us connect to the signals from our body so that we can interpret them and stay connected to ourselves. And so in this program, I have what I call the 5 magic moves. And the 5 magic moves are, the first one is to focus on the consequences of your action every day. So in other words, you need to make some time in the morning to focus on what the consequences would be if you took action towards your health, and if you took action away from your health, shall we say. So in other words, if you decided to practice the 5 magic moves, what would the benefits be for you today? And once I tell you what the rest of them are, you'll understand where we're going here. And if you didn't apply them, what would the drawbacks be? So I can tell you now, the drawbacks would be that your life would stay the same. So if you are currently low in energy, if you're not feeling great, if you're not experiencing optimal health and high vitality, then you are not living into your full health potential. So if you've got that, then maybe this doesn't apply to you. But if you don't, then whatever it is you're currently doing is contributing to that. So if you don't change it, it's going to stay the same or potentially worsen. So the first one is to focus on the consequences. And that one's a little bit difficult for you to grasp unless you've possibly done the workshop. But the next 4 you can absolutely do. So the next one is to eat only when you're physically hungry. Now, most of us don't even know what that feels like. So my advice to you would be to eat your dinner, your supper meal, your last meal of the day, and then to undertake not to eat again until you get a physical hunger signal. And the physical hunger signal has to come from your stomach, which is below your breastbone and maybe slightly to the left. So it's right in the center, at the top of your abdomen, a little bit to the left in some people, and it has to be a physical sensation. So for some people, it's grumbling. I used to think rumbling was mine, but actually my tummy rumbles sometimes and it's not hungry, okay? So rumbling, it can be a sense of emptiness. It can be sort of like a sinking feeling. It's a physical sensation, and that is a signal from your stomach that you need food. If you're not getting that signal, then food is not what you need. You may need distraction, you may need soothing, you may need to feel your emotions, but it's not food. So the only thing that you can feed with food is your physical hunger signal. So the second magic move is to eat only when you get the physical hunger signal. I promise you, if you can do just this one, you probably won't have to worry about your nutritional profile again. It's hard, but like with everything else, the more you practice it, the more you're able to do it. And the more you'll start recognizing how often you eat when you're actually not physically hungry. The third magic move is to eat whatever you absolutely 100% feel like. Now, a lot of people also go, oh my God, Loretta, if you give me this choice, I'll just eat chocolate every day. You may eat chocolate every day, but I can tell you this, I've been doing this for a while, and I never want something that isn't proper food if I'm truly physically hungry. So when I really, really feel like chocolate, it's very often got nothing to do with physical hunger. It can be fatigue, it can be anxiety, it can be boredom, it can be frustration, but it's not physical hunger. So the second part of that particular one is you can ask yourself, what could I eat right now? Like you're hungry, right? So you've established it's physical hunger. What could I eat right now that would be nourishing for me? So maybe if it was cold, soup and fresh bread would be nourishing. Maybe if it was hot, salad or a smoothie would be nourishing. Maybe if it was freezing outside, no matter how healthy your smoothie was, packed with superfoods and pomegranates and, Lord knows what else. If it is freezing cold and it will make you feel freezing cold, then maybe that's not the most nurturing option for right now. I can tell you now, a donut, for example, is not really a nurturing option. It's a distracting or a soothing option. So you're not going to get it right at the beginning. It requires practice, but I promise you, if you practice it and you really get in touch with what do I really, what would nurture me optimally in this meal, then you will find yourself making choices that are more nurturing than punishing. Because we think that we are comforting ourselves, or we call them treat foods or reward foods. Okay, we're not rewarding anything. What we're doing is we're rewarding an emotion that's uncomfortable. It's usually anxiety or boredom or frustration. Sometimes it's sadness or loneliness, right? We're actually not rewarding ourselves. We're punishing ourselves for having negative emotions. That was the third one. The fourth magic move is to eat without distraction. Not in front of the TV, not while you're on social media, not when you're driving your car, not when you're working. You can be distracted by conversation with people that you really like or that you love, like your family. You can sit around and you can discuss things, but basically, you want to avoid topics like, the current political situation or something controversial, and rather a really good way to do it is to talk about, like, what are you grateful for today? Everyone can get a chance to say, what happened today that was really amazing? And so you're focusing on the food, you're focusing on the connection with the other people, you're connecting to yourself, and you're enjoying that meal. So eat without distractions. And the last magic move is to stop before you're full, or at least when you've had enough, okay? So when your stomach is no longer empty, you're not getting the signal any longer, but the food was really delicious and you think you want more, stop. This is also very difficult, but not undoable. So if you practice these 5 magic moves, then you will start automatically designing the diet or the nutrition program that is perfect for you. The next thing that I believe you need to do in order to nurture yourself holistically so that you can pursue your goals and be the best version of yourself is to feel your emotions. So here's the thing, particularly for those of us that are cerebral, that spend a lot of time thinking and analyzing and solving problems and thinking critically. We think a lot, right? But we avoid how we feel. We don't mind the positive emotions, but the negative emotions, we're not so keen on them. So here's the thing, emotions don't want to be fixed. They want to be felt. So one way that helps for me is if I think of my emotions as if they were my children. So it would be all good and well for me to want to spend time with the children that I thought were good, positive, resilient, independent, leaders. And then I want to avoid the children that are weak, needy, sad, lonely, clingy, shameful, envious, greedy, jealous. I want to avoid those feelings, those children. Now, you wouldn't want to avoid your children just because they had characteristics that you didn't think were amazing. And so we avoid our feelings and we distract ourselves with work. We distract ourselves with food. We try and numb the negative emotion because we've never been taught to fully feel our feelings. Now, I just want to be clear with you. Feeling your feelings is not the same as expressing your feelings. So when you're talking about how you feel or you're ranting and raving because you feel angry, that's an expression of your emotion. Even crying, you're expressing the emotion. And expressing the emotion is often in an attempt not to feel it. Now, sometimes that can soothe us and it's not a bad coping mechanism. But feeling the emotion, it just wants to be felt. So emotions are like waves. They come in, they peak, they break, they roll into the shore, and they recede. But they only do that if we allow ourselves to feel them fully. So when we can deeply feel our emotions, then we no longer have the need to soothe our emotions with food, or to distract ourselves with food or intense exercise or whatever the case may be. Did I mention move every day under the rules for health? I don't know, I think I stopped at sleep, right? Move every day, sorry, is one of them. So it's eat mostly plants. I'm getting distracted. It's eat mostly plants, whole foods, mostly plants. It's hydrate well, it's sleep well, and it's move every day. We are designed to move, especially if you've got a sedentary desk job. It really is important that you move every day, and moving during the day is as important or even more important than exercising once during the day, okay? Although the exercise is important because it has all sorts of other benefits. Okay, I digress. Back to the emotions. So we distract ourselves from our feelings by being busy, by working, by watching TV, by scrolling through social media feeds, by eating very often, okay? So sometimes what looks like a healthy coping mechanism like exercise can become extreme. It's an attempt not to feel the feeling. You get addicted to the feel-good hit of the chemicals that are produced when you exercise, and because you would rather feel good than feel your negative emotions, you tend to over-exercise. There is such a thing as too much, all right? So we need to feel our emotions. So again, in my Your Ideal Body program, I teach my students a technique which is called the feeling meditation. And it's a 10-minute process that helps you to feel the emotions rather than trying to distract yourself from them. If you don't feel the emotions, that's a bit like having these children that you think are great. So you spend time with the good children and then you try and lock the bad children in the cellar. They become subversive. They go underground. They have to become sly. And our suppressed emotions do go underground and they come out in sabotaging behavior. So when you are unable to stick to your program, whatever that is, when you're unable to take action towards your goal, when you feel like you're sabotaging yourself, sometimes it is because of emotion that you have not fully felt. This is not something that we are taught as children. This is also not something that's really encouraged by our school system or by our authorities. The people that we look up to, when we're young. So this is something that we generally have to learn ourselves. And it's also, again, it's challenging, but not impossible. So that emotional feeling rather than fixing is absolutely vital. Of course, it's important for us to tend to our spiritual needs as well. And so without interfering with anyone's religious or spiritual beliefs, I just want to say one thing. I was brought up as a Christian, and so my grounding in religion has been Christianity. And, in Christianity, we're always taught to pray. Well, my understanding is that praying is asking, and meditating, or what is called conscious prayer, is listening. So you can always be asking, there's nothing wrong with the asking, but if you don't make time and space for the listening, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually get the answers. Now, spirituality or nourishing your spirit is not only about your religious or your spiritual practice. Going into nature can be a spiritual recharge. Spending time in your garden is a spiritual recharge. Playing with a pet can be a spiritual recharge. Playing with your children can be a spiritual recharge, right? Generally getting out of detoxifying from electronics, turning off your phone for a day and your computer. Having an electronic detox, no TV, no phone, no computer. Some people would think they're going to die. I promise you, you won't die, right? So maybe instead of doing that, you can go hiking for the day, right? That is a spiritual recharge. And so it's really, really important that we do this. Now, as you're watching this, you might be thinking, oh God, now I've got to think about like the 5 magic moves you don't have to make time for. You only have to make 5 minutes or 10 minutes for the consequences, right? But for the rest of them, you can practice them throughout the day. And now she says, I have to meditate, and I have to exercise every day. And well, how am I going to get my job done? And my dreams and goals are about becoming more successful in my work and making more money or growing my business. Well, here's the thing. We live in a dualistic universe. In this world that we live in, there are always pairs of opposites. So we have day and night, we have black and white, we have good and bad, we have success and failure, we have independence and dependence, we have happy and sad, and they come together as a package. They occur together. So an example of this is if you, for example, are on an amazing holiday. It's like your dream holiday, and you're super happy. As your holiday advances, you start thinking about having to go back, right? You back to your normal life, back to work, out of paradise and back to the real world. So you're having a great time, but you're also unhappy because you've got to go, it's going to end, all right? It's the same. It's like eating a chocolate. It's great at the beginning, and the further you go, well, it becomes still great, but it's like it's gonna run out, right? It's gonna end. Those things go together, and so we need to keep everyone's always talking about balance, like balance between work life. I personally think that we need to have a balance between being and doing. And those of us who are driven, and those of us who want to reach goals, and those of us who want to make a mark on the world, whatever it is that you want to do, in whichever form you want to do that, we are very much indoctrinated into the doing paradigm. That doing is better. Being is just wasting time. I mean, who wants to sit around feeling their feelings? Who's got time for that? Who's got time to meditate for 20 minutes every day? Who's got time to meditate and exercise and feel their feelings every day and check in with themselves every, hour or an hour and a half? Who's got time for that? Well, I'm telling you this. You need a balance between doing and being. And ironically, it's only when you are capable of doing the being, of being the being, right? Of doing those being things, the meditation, the time in nature, the prayer, the reading inspirational material, the listening to inspirational podcasts, for example. It's only when you make time for those kind of activities that you truly are able to be highly productive. Because the more you get a balance between being and doing, the more productive you'll become and the more effortless it will become. We all want to be productive, but we don't want to add another 20 things to our to-do lists, because most of us have to-do lists that are already too long. So I would urge you to slow down, don't rush, and make space in your life for being activities. And don't think of them as robbing you of productive doing time. Think of them as enhancing your productive doing time. Think of how many things children can do in a day. They can do a lot. I'm talking about little children, okay? So it doesn't look like much because they're little. So, we're judging them based on sort of like work output. But little kids get a lot done in the day. They burn up a lot of calories. They run around a lot. They learn a lot. They have huge numbers of experiences. But they also slow down very often to eat. They nap. They sleep, all right? So even if their sleep is broken, they break your sleep at night, they still sleep. So they have the balance of being and doing really, I want to say really young children have that balance fairly well. And then we start messing them up from the time that from the time that they're about 2 or 3. But anyway, that's a topic for a completely different video. So if you don't have the time to take care of your health, and by your health, I'm not just speaking about your physical health, I'm now speaking about your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. If your reason for not doing any of these practices is because you don't have the time, I want to say this to you. If you don't make time for health, you're going to have to concede that you are going to at some point have to make time for illness, because that's ultimately what happens. And here's the thing, life is not only about success as we measure it sort of in the world, business or work success or family success. Life is about enjoying the ride, and the being part is enabling you to enjoy the ride. So when you are able to practice that, even the parts that are challenging, when shit does happen, which it invariably does, you are actually able to get through that with more poise and grace. And wouldn't we all love to do that? So the last thing I want to tell you is about how signs and symptoms in your body work. I have a teacher who said, Dr. John DeMartini, he said, the mind always lies, the body never does. That's why God put the clues in the body. So I'm going to say that again. The mind always lies, the body never does. That's why God put the clues in the body. And then one of the reasons why the body never lies is because the body is the one part of you that's always in the present. You may have been 20 kilograms lighter 10 years ago, and you may be 20 kilograms heavier right now. It doesn't matter that you weighed less 20 years ago. It's what you weigh now. You've only got the now. Your physical body is constantly in the present. And your physical body, your signs and symptoms, many of us think of them as punishment for not having been good enough about our diet or not having exercised enough. I don't see signs and symptoms that way. I see signs and symptoms as feedback. Signs and symptoms are the language of your unconscious trying to get your attention. And so when you look at them that way, instead of getting angry and frustrated because they're slowing you down, and you ask yourself, what is this trying to tell me? And instead of your prayer being, please heal me, to whoever you're praying to, your prayer becomes, please show me what it is you're trying to tell me. Then you can actually work with the signs and the symptoms of your body and see them as feedback. It's like a language. It's a language that most of us just don't understand. And an easy way to find out what it's trying to tell you is asking yourself, what is it forcing you to do? So about 2 weeks ago, I hurt my back, ironically, while brushing my teeth. So I obviously overstrained things. I over-exercised. I worked too hard in karate or whatever it is that I was doing. And I was brushing my teeth, and I took the toothbrush and I bent down to put it into the cupboard. And when I tried to come up, backache. I had to spend the whole of the next day in bed. I was so frustrated because I had so many things to do. And so, of course I know this. So first of all, I allowed myself to just feel the feelings, because it's okay to feel frustrated, right? And feel anxious because now I'm going to get behind and whatever was going on. But the next question was, well, what does this really mean? Look what it's forced me to do. It's forced me to come to a complete standstill. Not just a standstill, I had to lie down because it was the only position in which I wasn't in pain. So where was I? Taking on too much responsibility, trying to do too much, over-exercising my body, pushing myself too hard. Because if you don't make space for the rest to happen, then your body is going to make the space for you. So we all get sick. We all have signs and symptoms. I have a high value on health, and I think I take quite good care of myself. And this kind of thing happens to me too. So just because you know this doesn't mean that you're free of this. You're human. We're all subject to these laws. And your signs and symptoms are feedback of where you are essentially off course. And my experience has been, it's where I'm off course when I'm not feeling my feelings fully. I'm just pretending I'm not anxious and I'm trying harder, okay? I'm not connecting deeply to myself and asking myself, what do you need to nurture yourself right now? Maybe you don't need to work hard enough right now. Even if your cash flow is a disaster, maybe working harder is not the answer. Maybe actually taking some time back and reevaluating so that you can recharge and actually connect to your intuition and regroup. Maybe that's what you need right now. And if I give myself permission to do those being things, the meditating, the being quiet, the journaling, the yoga, the out in nature, the time out from my life, the less likely I am to get signs and symptoms. Even though there's a little voice in the back of my head that says, Loretta, you should be doing all the time, because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't put in the hard work. So this is where I think we have to maintain the balance more, because if you can maintain that balance within yourself, then you will be balanced within your work, you'll be balanced within your family life, you'll be balanced within your social life. You'll only maintain the balance for short periods of time, but you'll be constantly course correcting and readjusting. So thank you so much for your attention. I know that this has been long. Thank you so much, Lita, for inviting me to address this group. I'm really sorry that I couldn't be there in person. I would love to meet all of you in person. If you have any questions, you can contact me through Lita. She has my contact details. And if you're interested, you can join my mailing list, and then you will receive regular updates on what's going on from me. You'll also have regular health information from me, as well as how to sort of manage things mentally and emotionally, the kind of things that I've just been talking about. And if you are keen to learn more about the magic moves and about the feeling meditation, then I would urge you to join one of my live workshops, which is called Your Ideal Body. In fact, I haven't set the date yet, but the next one will be happening in July of 2019 in East London. I also have an online course, which is called Ditch Diets for Good, which essentially is a summary of the 5 magic moves, and it gives you a little bit more information than I've just been able to give you now, obviously. It's got 6 short modules in it with videos and worksheets, and it helps you to learn how to implement those 5 magic moves and how to actually implement them into your life. If you're interested in knowing more about any of this, please will you contact me by sending me an email or connecting with me on social media. My social media business page is called Your Ideal Body. I would love for you to like and follow me there, or you can friend me directly, Loretta Ferrucci. And once you've done that, then you'll be able to see those other things that happen on my newsfeed. So thanks once again for your attention. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all absolutely optimal health and high vitality, and the joy and freedom of being fully in your body, connected to your emotions, and not being a slave to your mind.